He's here.
Jones!
The world's greatest adventurer, Indiana Jones, in his first, biggest, and best adventure. It's the movie that sparked a new era of action, thrills, and entertainment to become one of the most popular films of all time. From George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and starring Harrison Ford.
Trust me.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Tuesday at 8 p.m. on Paramount 20 Prime Time.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? 40th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark coming up next on the Couch Brotato Podcast. Welcome back to the Couch Brotato Podcast. Things are going to sound a little different this week. My normal co-host, Lucas, is not joining us. He just welcomed a baby. So congratulations, Lucas and Tina. So I'm not sure when Lucas will be back. Hopefully next week. But if not, we've got some good episodes rounded up. And I've also got some pretty heavy hitters lined up to take his spot. So we're going to be okay. But congratulations once again, Lucas. This week, I brought in a ringer since we're doing celebrating the 40th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've got a person with me who probably has seen this movie and loves it even more than I do, and that's our producer, Adam. Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. What about you, Russ?
I'm doing well. Pretty excited to do this today.
I am as well. It's probably in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It probably rivals for number 1, actually. So,
I was just going to say that this might be a hot take, and it may be because I just have watched the Raiders and like the Indiana Jones saga more recently than this, but this might sound like a hot take, but I kind of like these more than the Star Wars movies.
I mean, it's not hard to beat the newer Star Wars movies. So, I mean, the newer ones probably take the older ones down a tad. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at them separately, like I am, it's still Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's
right.
Really hard to decide.
I would probably say that Raiders and Empire probably, like you said, even. Yeah. I would probably give A New Hope the edge over Temple of Doom. But then I think the gap between Last Crusade and Return of the Jedi, I think Crusade is a much better film than Return of the Jedi.
For sure, yeah. I mean, the Ewoks do that movie a little bit.
And Indiana Jones has James Bond.
Right.
So that right there is a trump card. Real quick, for those of you that haven't seen this, which movie's 40 years old next week, you've had plenty of opportunity to see this. In 1936, archaeologist Indiana Jones is hired by the U.S. government to find the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis. Pretty simple. Good standard plot. But I wanted to ask you, what makes this movie such an iconic classic? I mean, what do you think?
To me, I think that just the basic premise of it being like one of those old serial adventure action movies, George Lucas did the same thing with Star Wars, with Flash Gordon and Star Wars. He wanted to make an adventure serial kind of like that, and it kind of plays into that longing for adventure that everybody has, that kind of mysterious like BA stranger guy going off and fighting the bad guy, and that sort of thing. So
yeah, like that too. I think you hit on a lot of good points. I also think that this is what makes action movies so great, like in adventure movies especially. Just it's like a roller coaster. It's like there are so many thrills in this movie, and I've seen this movie. I just watched this movie last night, and the opening sequence still like gives me like, fuck, is he going to get out of this?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's hard to do, especially for a movie that's so old. And like, I've seen so many times, like, okay, he's going to outrace the boulder. He's going to like jump and he grabs a vine. It's going to it's going to give a little bit. He's going to fall down, but he's going to pull himself up. I'm still like on the edge of my seat. Like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Is he going to fall?
I mean, some of those movies, you automatically think, well, this is the main character, so I know he's going to survive. This movie, you have that in the back of your mind, but you suspend your disbelief while you're watching it still. Like, to this day, every time I watch it, it's man, that was a really cool scene, and you don't know if he's going to escape it just because he gets out in the nick of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like you have these really incredible action sequences, and then there's like kind of like it brings you down, so you kind of get to know the characters a little bit, and they're developing the plot, and then like, okay, here's another action sequence, super thrilling. Okay, we got to bring it back down a little bit, and to me, that's the best action movies. It's movies that can do that.
Yeah, and it still keeps the pace, even if it is a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Low moments are still good, and it still progresses the plot. So, I mean, it's not one of those movies that has its really high highs, and then you're just sitting there waiting for the next one.
Right. And I also think, too, that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, of the opinion that I think my favorite movie character of all time is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I love action movies to begin with. It's probably my favorite genre movie. But I think with them, I think Indiana Jones is the prototype for the more contemporary action hero, where it's not like he's not made of steel and he's just super brave and strong. Like Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes.
Yeah.
Usually when he gets into a fight, he gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen him like win a fist fight just on like fist alone. He always has something break his way. Where he comes, like in this movie as an example, he's fighting that gigantic Nazi mechanic. He just happens to, Marion has turned the plane on, and then the propellers end up getting the guy. Indiana Jones probably, there's a good chance he would have gotten killed by that guy, but shit just broke his way, and he survives it. And to me, that gives him more of an everyman feel. Like, I can relate more to Indiana Jones than I can Tony Stark and Iron Man. Like, I'll never be that rich. Hopefully, if somebody wants to buy this show, you can turn me into Tony Stark. But, but yeah, I'll never be rich. I'll never be John Wick. I'll never be a hitman, or I'll never be a policeman like, just Martin Riggs from Lethal Weapon. But, like I can relate to a lot of that stuff. I mean, I have my own fears. I don't always come out on top. And I think that makes Indiana Jones relatable. And that's why I think he's like probably the greatest movie character of all time. Hot take, number 2 of this show.
There are a lot of movie characters that I like, but not a lot of movie characters that I relate to. And I know that a lot of people, even like TV personalities that are working for the Discovery Channel right now, they said that Indiana Jones is their inspiration for their job choice. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of different types of media that have drawn from Indiana Jones as an inspiration, like video games, like Tomb Raider and Uncharted, games like that. I've all drawn from this one character, and there's not a lot of movie characters that you can say that about. I mean, Darth Vader's an awesome movie character, but has he inspired people to pick a job? I don't think so.
Well, I don't think there's too many job listings that like are looking for like a Dark Lord who's mastered the art of the Sith.
You know what? If there is, I'm gonna try really hard to get that job.
Yeah, can you just imagine like you're on Indeed looking for a new job, and like the Empire's got like looking for like Sith Lord, must be imposing lightsaber expertise a plus. Perhaps a questionable past.
If you've killed children, it's okay.
Yeah. Killing children also preferred. No college degree necessary.
Being a master of the Jedi also not necessary.
Well, maybe we'll just do that then. We'll just quit doing this show after this episode. We'll just like create like an episode where we just create fake job listings.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Like the next one we'll do is like must be like the front desk like a front desk manager for like the Continental in John Wick.
Or a cop that's a loose cannon that has to save a tower from terrorists.
Yeah. Yeah, must have nerves of steel and ample footwear.
Don't pay attention to the rules of your boss.
Right.
Constantly degrade them on national television.
Opinionated is a plus. All right, well, we'll get into the tail of the tape here real quick. There's a lot. There's some stuff about this when I was doing the tail of the tape that I was completely unaware of about Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you and I were discussing this earlier. When I watched it last night on Vudu, that they had it as Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, I didn't know that they had changed it to that. I've always called it Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Now, you call it Raiders too?
I call it Raiders too, and only because I have a disdain for George Lucas going back and changing things in his movies.
Yeah, that's a very good point. George, stop it. We've grown accustomed to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just keep it that way. Well, getting back to our tail of the tape here. Released on June 12th, 1981. So, yeah, it's coming up on 40 years really soon. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll be like 5 days away. Directed by Steven Spielberg. This stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, John Rhys Davies, and Denholm Elliott. The box office in 1981 was $389 million worldwide, which I got a little curious to see what that would be in today's dollars. It would be an $810 million haul for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's impressive.
It is. Rotten Tomatoes score 95 from critics and 96 from audiences. Nominated for 9 Academy Awards. Now, that's the one that I was surprised about. I didn't know it got that many Oscar nominations. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Score, and it won Best Sound, Art Direction, Editing, and Visual Effects. Now, what won in 1981 for Best Picture?
I'm not sure.
And I'm also trying to find out who won for... I'll look that up here in a second. But also selected by the U.S. Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry in 1999. And as we started doing last week, this is currently streaming on Paramount Plus. We had a listener last week ask us to start telling everybody where you can stream these movies, and our last episode wasn't streaming anywhere. But this one, you can totally watch all 4 of these on Paramount Plus.
I think it's the only place that you can watch them if you have a subscription to some kind of service.
Yeah, there's a really good app that I use called Just Watch, and yeah, the Indiana Jones movies are just on Paramount. They used to be on Netflix for a while too. Chariots of Fire won the Best Picture in 1981. And also it won Best Score, which that's kind of a cool score. And I always think of like people running. I always hear that song in my head, but it's not as good as this one.
No, I would have to agree with you on that. Raiders is better.
Yeah, I mean, great score by Vanellis. I probably totally fucked his name up, or their name up, or her name up. I apologize if you're still around. But yeah, it's not as good as Raiders. Sorry. Well, we'll go into the William Somerset Research Corner because there was quite a bit of information that you can sink your teeth into in this one. I just kind of, what I normally do is I cherry pick the best ones for myself and I save everybody else to scraps.
I'll probably get the scraps. That's okay.
This one's not really a fun fact. This is pretty much common knowledge to any fan of movies that Tom Selleck was originally cast as Indiana Jones. George Lucas wanted to cast a fresh face because he didn't want Harrison Ford and him to have the Scorsese, Robert De Niro vibe where basically in the 70s and 80s, De Niro was in a ton of Scorsese movies, and he didn't want that same thing with him and Harrison Ford. So he wanted Tom Selleck, but Tom Selleck couldn't do it because he was obligated to do Magnum PI for CBS, and they wouldn't let him out of his contract. So George Lucas couldn't have his first choice, so they went with Spielberg's first choice, which was Harrison Ford. And the role of Marion was supposed to be Sean Young. Because,
really?
Sean Young and Tom Selleck had a really great screen test. I guess they had, like, off-the-wall, like, just superb chemistry between the two of them. But when Selleck couldn't do it, they cast Karen Allen instead. If you get a chance on YouTube, there is somebody did one of those deep fake videos where they've put Tom Selleck's face on Indiana Jones. You can watch like these iconic scenes with Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones.
That's pretty cool.
He still has the mustache, which I guess when I was doing this, Indiana Jones was going to have a mustache. if Tom Selleck played him.
I think they made the right decision with Harrison Ford, though.
They did. I mean, I like Tom Selleck, and I think he would have been pretty good as Indiana Jones, but, like, man, this is – Harrison Ford owns this. This is, like – he's just kind of the right amount of charming and gruff, which, two, like, Indiana Jones' greatest qualities.
Right. It's like a more morally upstanding Han Solo, if you will. It's kind of the role he was born to play. He fits it so perfectly.
Right. Also, Danny DeVito was cast as Sala, but he also couldn't do it because of a TV show obligation. He was doing Taxi at the time, and he couldn't get out of that to do this.
I also think they made the right decision on that, just because I couldn't see Danny DeVito pulling off that role, to be honest.
Well, he ends up doing that a few years later. He was in Romancing the Stone, essentially playing kind of a similar character. I mean, I forget who he plays in those movies, but he's kind of a scumbag, whereas Sala's more of an upstanding friend to Indiana Jones. During filming in Tunisia, most of the cast and crew got sick except for Steven Spielberg, who brought tons of SpaghettiOs, and he ate those while he was in Tunisia, so he avoided getting sick like everybody else. I thought that was kind of funny.
That was part of mine. I saw that as well, so I put that as one of mine. But I also remember from the special features of the DVD, which I watched like a nerd, like I should, that John Rhys Davies had filled his pants during a scene when he was going to get shot by the Nazis, and they had to cut it out of the movie because he had soiled himself.
I read that too, and I almost thought about putting it on there, but I've also got another tidbit about everybody being sick, so I excluded that one for this one. But that's still like pretty funny, though. I wonder how many times in movies that happens where like just everybody gets fucking sick. I mean, pre-COVID, there's been many times where movies have gotten shut down now, but that's poor Sala. Well, the infamous scene where the guy in Cairo's wielding the sword. He's doing all like that fanatical sword stuff and like trying to show off his sword wielding skills. And then Harrison Ford just pulls out his gun and shoots him.
Yes.
That was ad-lib because Harrison Ford was sick.
Right. That's probably one of my favorite ad-lib scenes in the movie. There's a couple of them, but that's probably the one that takes the cake.
That's like probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. We'll get to favorite scene later, but I love that sequence though, because that's like, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
And he's just like, fuck it, and just shoots him. The last one that I have is this film was supposed to be rated R due to Belloq's head exploding, but they had to add layers of fire around his face to get a PG rating, which, as we went over earlier in our Gremlins episode, they didn't introduce the PG-13 rating until late 1984. So, yeah. That scene is fucking morbid, even in today's standards. Like, and the fact that movie's PG with that, it just blows my fucking mind.
Careful, kids. People's heads explode.
I was watching the rest of it this morning, and I was scared to death because my daughter was up, and she's only 2, and I was afraid that she was going to see their faces melting and just have a fucking meltdown because she was scared to death. But nope, she was watching Coco Melon on an iPad instead.
Oh, that's good.
Adam, do you have any extra facts besides actors and actresses shitting their pants on set?
I do. There's a couple of Star Wars characters that make an appearance in this movie. If no one is aware, when I believe it's in the Well of Souls sequence, when they're in there, if you look on the back wall with the Egyptian hieroglyphics, you can spot C-3PO and R2-D2 in the hieroglyphics on the wall.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, and they also appear right behind the Ark of the Covenant in a second scene. So.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that.
And another one was, let's see here. I have my notes here. A lot of the sound effects for the fights, basically what the Foley artists did was they took a whole bunch of leather coats and they decided to hit them with baseball bats at varying velocities, so it sounded different each time.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, the sound direction and the lighting on this movie are amazing, and I think that was really cool. I think that's one of my favorite things about this movie is basically the cinematography of the movie is just spot on. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And another one was when Indy falls into the Well of Souls in the infamous snake scene. Snakes, why did it have to be snakes? They had a king cobra on set to be extra scary, I guess. And they were all on high alert as soon as the cobra was on the set, just because it's so dangerous. They had anti-venom there. They even put a sheet of plexiglass in between Harrison and the snake when he falls, so he wouldn't get hurt. But when he falls, you can actually see the snake spit venom at him, and the venom actually hits the plexiglass. And when the lightning effect hits, you can actually see the venom splotched on the glass in between them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, now I'll have to go back and watch it just to see that. See, folks, this is why I brought Adam on as a ringer, because like I would have never given you guys that kind of information. Now you can tell that at parties when you're sitting around with your friends, like, hey, do you know that scene in Indiana Jones where he falls into the Well of Souls? Fucking snake spits venom at him. Wow, that's a great fun fact. Tell at your next barbecue, gang. Yeah, those are really cool. I forgot, like, I remember there was an old PBS documentary basically about the making of this, and I think I remember watching it, and they made mention to the Star Wars Easter eggs, but I never really paid attention to it when I watched the movie.
Right.
So that's actually really cool. The I Drink Your Milkshake Award, and I think going forward, maybe we should put like that, him saying that, so kind of for added effect.
Okay.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
The award for best scene of the movie, and this was fucking tough, narrowing this down to 5. I mean, I have my favorite, but it's still pretty tough to narrow 5 down because there's so many, and I think I end up grouping like 2 or 3 sequences together as one. So I cheated a little bit.
That's fair. With this movie, we're going to allow it.
I put the opening sequence from the time you meet Indiana Jones until he gets on the plane with Jock and they're flying away. That whole sequence is phenomenal. It's probably one of the best, I would say the best opening sequence in movie history, or one of them. You get the iconic Indiana Jones getting chased by the boulder. Get the very first film role of Alfred Molina.
That is another good point there too.
Yeah, he's the slimy member of his crew that ends up leaving him for dead when Indy sets off the booby traps. Yeah, you get to meet Bellick for the first time too, who's a kind of a charismatic villain. I don't hate him as much as I should, because they make a point later on. It's like, yeah, they kind of are very similar.
A point on Bellick too is when the actor interviewed for the job and auditioned, they asked him if he could do a French accent, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do a French accent," even though he had never tried, and he ended up landing the role.
Good for you, Paul Freeman. You go, boy. And this also leads to a discovery that you find later on in the movie, and it's kind of a trope throughout the rest of the film series, that Indiana Jones is petrified of snakes. Because Jock has that, was that a python?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not well versed on snakes and amphibians, so I was assuming it was a python, but I wanted to be sure. That's another reason why we got Adam on the show. He clears up all my mistakes. The second one is the introduction to Marion at the bar. I think that's a really good sequence. And we also get introduced to Tote. Is that his name?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
I don't think they ever really pronounce his name in the movie, or if they do, I don't catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know why this always stands out with me, but when he grabs the medallion after it's super hot, he just screams like Homer Simpson.
Yes.
It's like when he grabs it, like, no shit, it's gonna be that fucking hot. But I really like this scene because it kind of gives you a glimpse of who Marion is, and she's not really your typical damsel in distress. Like, at least up to that point, usually like the female lead is somebody for the hero to save. You know, like they're usually very attractive, but they don't really offer much outside of that. But I mean, Marion is pretty much 3 sheets to the wind in this. She's drunk, and really her only motivation is she wants to be partners with Indiana Jones to get the Covenant. So, and you kind of see like pieces of that character later on in like basically any other movie that features a female heroine, which I think is kind of cool. The third scene I nominated was the whole sequence in Cairo where they're getting chased by the Nazis. You get the whole, we just touched on it earlier, the famous don't bring a knife to a gunfight sequence.
Perfect.
Then like that monkey, I don't know why, like when I was a kid, I seen it, I was like, I kind of want a monkey as a pet. And then like that sequence is also the reason why I will never eat a date. It's because I just look at them as like, if they're shiny, like, oh, they've got poison on them. They killed that monkey in Indiana Jones.
That monkey was a Nazi. He did the Nazi salute. He deserved that. So
yeah, he did. That monkey's still charming though. Like I kind of want that monkey. Then this sequence, I lumped a bunch of scenes together for this. The Well of Souls escape, the fist fight at the airfield, and the Indy chasing the Ark on horseback. That's an incredible sequence, like just one scene after another. And it's really like we described earlier, this being like a roller coaster. It's like, this is kind of like that sequence where you get like the smaller bump, then you get like the bump that's bigger than the last one, then you get the huge rush where he's chasing after them on horseback.
Right.
I did notice something though, that the Nazi that he's fighting in the truck, I thought for the longest time that was Paul Hogan from Crocodile Dundee. I was like, yeah, that guy looks exactly like Crocodile Dundee, but I looked it up and it's not.
Indiana Jones just beat the crap out of Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, like that'd be one of those movies now that'd be like, since they're both under the Paramount umbrella, like you would have had like Indiana Jones versus Crocodile Dundee. This would have been Paramount's version of Kong versus Godzilla.
The Indiana Jones cinematic universe.
Yep. It'd have been Crocodile Dundee, then he would have went on to, I don't know, like fight Ethan Hunt. A little fun fact about the sequence, especially the fist fight at the airfield. That guy is Pat Roach, a former pro wrestler, and he's been in every Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's just been like kind of like, I guess he's Steven Spielberg's go-to for like a big ogre is the description I read. But his sequence, he is like one of the guys in the mine, the caves in Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
His sequence got cut out in Last Crusade, and then he plays like a Nazi or not a Nazi, but a Russian in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which we don't acknowledge on this show as a movie, but
no.
He also was considered at one point to play Darth Vader, like inside the suit.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
George Lucas and Steven Spielberg putting him on retainer.
Mm-hmm. Well, fuck it. Like, hey, man, every time those guys got a movie, I've got a paycheck coming, so be glad to do it. And then the last scene that I have is the finale where they take the Ark and they open it up, and then that fucking gruesome death sequence to everybody where their faces melt off and then like Belloq's head explodes. Still, like I stand by it. Like that's a fucking gruesome sequence for a PG movie. You'll never see that in a Disney movie now.
Another fun fact about that scene too, even though we're out of the research corner.
Fuck it. It's Indiana Jones. We'll do whatever we want today.
All right. Steven Spielberg and a couple of the producers and writers noticed that nobody had mentioned the Nazis' hate for the Jews, and throughout the entire movie, whether or not it was intentional by Lawrence Kasdan or not, I don't know. But they decided to put in the line, this Jewish ritual, I don't feel comfortable doing it, or something of that effect, just to put in that hatred towards the Jews there at the end. Yeah, just a little extra punch, which when you said that, I just noticed that we discussed Nazis last week, our last episode, Inglourious Basterds. Now we're doing it again. So, recurring theme here on our show is we like seeing Nazis get the shit kicked out of them. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Do you have any other scenes you want to add to this before we award this?
Let's see here. You actually touched on literally all the scenes that I did.
It's so tough though, man.
It is. I even like this. I think you lumped it in with the Egypt fight scene. But no, actually, it goes before that. But when Indy has a hold of that Nazi and he's holding him up to the fan. I don't know about you, but that always has given me a morbid fear of metal fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like I cannot be around a metal fan now because of this movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm a metal fan. You hang out with me all the time. Do I scare you now? Touche.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Yep.
But all of the scenes that you have said are my favorite. I think I split them up a little bit more than you did. I don't think I mentioned the beginning sequence, but that is also honorable mention for me, especially because they took a lot of care to make that cool, like especially with like the tarantulas and Alfred Molina's back, and they actually had to try and make them move with a female tarantula because they wouldn't move and they looked fake. They even scouted out a mountain that looked like the Paramount Mountain so that they could fade into it, which I think is a really nice touch.
Which they seem to do that. They've done that in every Indiana Jones movie since then.
Yeah, it's a really cool trope. I really like it. I hope they do it for this next Indiana Jones movie, but I'm not even going to mention that right now because I don't want to get hyped for it for obvious reasons.
Yeah, disappointment's a motherfucker.
But yeah, I think my favorite scene has to be the ending sequence, just because it's the climax. It's the visual effects on it. I mean, they're dated now, but they're still really cool because aside from what they composited it in, like the Angel of Death and everything, all of the effects in that scene are captured in camera. And I think that's really cool about the movie is like all of the effects that are captured in camera rather than like, it was the 80s. It wasn't like, there wasn't a whole bunch of CGI going on.
Right.
And I think that's part of the charm of I guess that's a bad word to put it, not charm, awesomeness of the last sequence there. The Angel of Death and the faces melting probably is the most iconic scene in that movie.
Even more than the boulder sequence. I mean, that's featured on everything. Like whenever they show like the best of Hollywood, it's always Indy getting chased by the boulder. It's
really hard toss up too, because anytime anyone mentions Indiana Jones, it's either one of the two sequences. I can't pick a favorite. I'm gonna leave it to you to pick a favorite because this movie is honestly, like, from start to finish, is my favorite scene.
Yeah, like I said, that's why it was so tough picking out one. I'm going to say the opening sequence, just because it's such a thrill ride. It's seriously like watching a roller coaster in action. Like I've keep describing this as a roller coaster, but that's really how it feels. It just so much cool stuff. The boulder chase sequence. Like whenever I think of Indiana Jones, I always think of that sequence. And even like where he's taking the bag of sand and he's trying to like almost judge it to where like he takes the idol and like the bag of sand at the same time. That whole sequence, it really introduced me to like the world of like booby traps. Yeah. And even when I played Uncharted, like I always like when you had to figure out like what to do is like what would Indiana Jones do? And I always reflected back to that sequence. And it's whenever I think of the whole series, it's usually that scene that's the one I always go back to first. So I'm going to give it to that one. Okay. I would agree with that. I mean, I like the scene that I picked, but like I said, I can't decide. It's really tough, man. Like the fight scene, or like when he's chasing after the Ark, that would probably be number 2, because we'll get into this in a little bit, but like John Williams' score, like when you get the Raiders March, it's just like, fuck, that gave me goosebumps. Because I was telling you, like I had to start part of it last night and I finished the rest of it this morning, and like I started right at that sequence, and it just like the hair on my arm started raising up. I'm like, fuck, man, this just made it even more tougher to pick. But I'm going to go with the opening sequence for that reason. Yeah, I would agree with that. And on another note, I'm not, getting paid by Walt Disney World or anything, but if anybody has a chance, definitely visit Disney's Hollywood Studios and go see the Indiana Jones stunt show whenever it opens back up because of COVID.
But
Well, when we
definitely
went
one of my favorite things there.
when we went back in April, they closed it because they're revamping it.
Okay, all right.
It's coming back from what I was told, but they've added new stuff to it.
Okay. Usually, what they did was they would start out with the opening sequence and the rolling boulder, and they actually have all of this like set up on the stage there, and they have actual pyrotechnics, and there's actual flames, and the people are all trained stuntmen. So it's actually a really cool show to go to for sure.
One more quick point about the opening sequence before we go on to the next category. Why didn't we get any more Jock in these movies? Like, I fucking love that character for as little screen time as he has, and you only see him in that movie. Like, he could have easily been in Temple of Doom.
Right. I mean, he could have easily been in The Last Crusade as well.
Yeah. Maybe he could even save Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I mean, we got a really cool blimp scene in Last Crusade, but they could have called Jock.
Yeah. Yeah, like, for part 5, bring him back. I don't know if the actor's passed on, but yeah, bring him back. Which, funny little tidbit about that. Apparently he is not, his outfit in that movie is like not time specific.
Oh, yeah.
He's wearing contemporary attire, and it's supposed to take place in like the 40s.
Yeah, it's the same way with the map sequences where they're showing where he's flying. There's a lot of countries that are named their modern names rather than the names they had in 1936.
Hey, you know what though, man? They had to save the rest of that money for like adding the flames to Paul Freeman's face when his fucking head explodes. A PG movie.
Right.
All right. Now we'll go on to the King Kong and Got Shit on Me award for the best line of the movie. So I've got my 5 here. You want to talk to God? Let's go together. I've got nothing better to do. When Indy thinks that Marion's dead and he's drinking, and then he ends up meeting with Bellic. This line always makes me laugh is in the airplane after Indiana Jones escapes, all the shit that happens in the opening of the movie when Jock says, come on, show a little backbone, will ya? When he discovers the snake in the plane. Like, he just went through all that. And let's see. I've got Marion saying, you can't do this to me. I'm an American. Just cracks me up. I actually think this is a really good line. Doesn't make me laugh. I just think it's a really good line, and it makes a lot of sense. Look at this. It's worthless. $10 from a vendor in the street, but I take it, bury it in the sand for 1,000 years, and it becomes priceless like the Ark. That was from Bellic. I thought that was a really good line. And then this basically is my life's motto at this point. It's not the age, it's the mileage from Indiana Jones.
That's another good one.
Do you have anything you want to add before we award the winner?
Oh, sure. So I don't think you have any of mine, which is good. It's a first.
Great.
So my first one is always the one that everybody goes to. It's, I think, one of the most famous lines in the movie. Asps, very dangerous. You go first.
Uh-huh.
I think everybody remembers that. And of course, what Indy says after he sees all the snakes is, snakes, why do they have to be snakes? Mm-hmm. Another good one, of course, from John Rhys Davies is Bad Dates. After the monkey eats the date and dies, grabs it from Indy. I think that was a really cool scene. And then another one that I liked that's not really like a famous line, but it just, the guy gives me the chills, is when he comes in to question Marion, and he pulls out the thing that ends up being a coat hanger, and he says, you Americans are all the same, overdressing for the wrong occasion. Now, what shall we talk about?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good line, too. And I really wanted to give him a line, but I just can't shake him screaming like Homer in that bar.
I think he's a really cool villain otherwise. Like,
he is.
He's creepy. I like that.
He's very creepy. And I guess apparently he shaves his head to give himself that bald pattern. But then, like, when they're in, I think they're getting ready to leave, you see him, like, take his hat off and wipe his head. You can see, like, the 5 o'clock shadows forming on his head. Real quick, though, like, I I swore that they use the phrase "it belongs in a museum" in this, but apparently they don't. At least not that I caught.
I don't think so. I think the first instance of that is in the third one.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But I always thought that was like kind of another recurring theme through these is he always says that at some point, but I listened and never heard it. So
right.
For me, I'm going to give it to it's not the age, it's the mileage, simply because like I empathize with that at this point. Like like right now, my back is killing me. So and
it was ad-libbed as well. That was an ad-libbed line. Yeah,
and I'm only 42, so it's like, yeah, like there's a lot of mileage on this body already. So I kind of like, that's kind of like my life's motto at this point. But so I'm going to give it to that. But there's so many good ones in here. But what would you give this award to?
Honestly, just because it's iconic from this movie, I would choose Asp's Very Dangerous, You Go First. Because honestly, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good line. It's the line that I wait for when I start up the movie. I think that's probably my favorite.
We will give it to that one because yeah, like you said, that is more iconic. And like my pick is more of a personal reason. So yeah, we'll give it to that one. That's a really good one to go with.
Okay.
We usually at this point we give the Lou Brown Give 'Em the Heater Award to a bit performer who we think brings the most heat. Somebody that like isn't featured in the movie that much, but like his performance stands out. I'm flipping it up a little bit because quite frankly, it's my show. And since Lucas isn't here, it's kind of like you have a substitute teacher. You kind of do whatever you want. So I'm going to give the Lou Brown Give 'Em the Heater Award to John Williams and his score. Because I think you need to talk about John Williams a little bit in this episode. And I don't want to get shit on in emails later on about, like, how could you not talk about John Williams, you piece of shit? So I want to give it to him. Adam, since you are movie scores or your wheelhouse, I'll let you kind of go into John Williams a little bit, and I'll just chime in with I'll pepper your comments a little bit.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is definitely my pick as well. John Williams is a genius. And, you know, I say that with a little bias just because I like all the movies that he does. But, I mean, you can't pick a composer that has any more iconic themes associated with him. He has Star Wars, he has Jaws, he has Indiana Jones,
E.T.
Jurassic Park, Harry Potter. I mean,
yeah.
Even Home Alone. Like, he has such a wide discography or just a whole portfolio of themes that are associated with him that are so famous. And every time Steven Spielberg walks up to receive an award at the Academy Awards, it's always either E.T. or Jurassic Park or something like that playing for him. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the pick for this movie is perfect just because the music in this movie is as much of a character as anybody in the movie. And I think that whenever anybody hears the music from this movie, they are instantly transported to that place in the movie. They remember it. And I think that's one of John Williams' best abilities as a composer is that's what he does, is he transports people into the movie with the characters.
Right. I think that like his movie scores, like really when you think about the iconic scores in film history, like, I mean, he's easily got like 7 of the top 10.
Yeah.
And I think that he's like the only conductor that like the average movie fan will know. Like, oh yeah, That's John Williams. I know who that is. For me, I picked John Williams simply because like whenever I think of an action movie hero, like the Indiana Jones theme song comes to mind. Or even if you're a dad, I'm a dad, and you do something that's kind of like you come and save the day. Like, I don't know about you, but I always kind of have like, okay, my son's got to be at his baseball game in 20 minutes. He forgot his cleats. I live 10 minutes away. Time for me to be the hero. And I don't know why I always have the Indiana Jones theme song playing in my head as I'm trying to get this done.
Yeah, you got to get ready. You got to grab your fedora before the door shuts on your hand.
Yep. But I think when you think of like a movie hero, I mean, it doesn't have to be an action movie. I mean, there's plenty of movie heroes that are outside the action realm, but like that score is so associated with the movie hero, the action movie hero, that like I think you have to give him this award. He doesn't act one single bit in this movie, but he's probably the second biggest character in this movie besides Harrison Ford.
Yeah. And cool fact about the Raiders March, which is probably the most iconic piece that he has created for this movie, or even in his whole library of music, is that he created 2 different themes for Steven Spielberg to listen to. And Steven Spielberg liked both of them so much, he's like, well, just put them both together. So that whole da-da-da-da is one theme. And then the whole lower da-da-da is another theme. And they decided to put them together. And it just works. I don't know how he does it, but whatever the director throws at him, like even George Lucas when he's doing Star Wars music, George Lucas explains something to him, probably terribly because it's George Lucas. But he comes up with art. And it's perfect the first time around.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like when you think about like all the most conductors would have kill to have like one iconic movie score, and the fact that he's got more iconic movie scores than fingers, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, like I mean Jaws, for example. You hear 2 notes. It's not even the whole song. You hear 2 notes. You immediately know, oh no, a shark's coming.
Right. Like I wonder how much money like that dude has made off of ringtones just between the Jaws theme, the Imperial March from Star Wars, and then the Raiders March. Just those 3 alone.
Right.
Like that guy's got to be rolled like just from residuals from ringtones.
Yeah, and I mean he's getting up there in age too, and I'm gonna be really sad when he's gone, just because like there's nobody to replace him. There isn't. I mean Hans Zimmer's really great, and there's Patrick Doyle's okay, but there's nobody to replace him.
No, I agree. There's nobody, and like well now like everybody's going to like they don't do movie scores like that anymore. It seems like it's like now they're inside of like an office putting shit together on a laptop, whereas like he's got a fucking orchestra. Yeah. Like, you know, he's conducting, and it's just like, man, he's got one of the, like, with this one too, like this is like one of the few movie scores that when I hear it, like I get goosebumps. Like I think I was telling you, well, yeah, I explained earlier, like the whole sequence where I got goosebumps when Indy starts chasing after the Ark on the truck.
Right.
And even the sequence when he's on the boat and the Nazis have captured Marion and the Ark, and they've taken it back to that submarine. And then, like, the crew of that ship is looking for Indiana Jones. They don't know where he's at. And then he pops up out of the water, and he runs across the deck of the submarine, and, like, he waves, like, yeah, I'm here, I'm all right. And then the crew just cheers. And you hear the Indiana Jones. I'm getting goosebumps right now describing that. And just no score does that. No conductor's ever done that. Right.
And it's going to be sad when we don't get that anymore. And I think that's, I know this isn't a Star Wars episode, but I think it's really cool to see just how movies have changed over the years, where like back in the 70s when Star Wars came out, they didn't use orchestras a lot either, because people would rather see more contemporary music in the movie. And George Lucas decided, hey, I want John Williams to do an orchestra score for this movie. And it worked, and everybody's like, wow, a classic orchestra score makes this movie really, really good. Like, that's one of the things is, like, when they did the first cut of Star Wars, they didn't, the people watching it didn't really understand it a whole lot. And then when the score was added, it added that extra layer, and they're like, oh, I get it now, you know, and it adds that extra emotion to the scenes that aren't normally there.
Right.
So I think he's really good at that.
All right, so I don't know if you've heard this, but Lucas and I have discussed like sending like an award, like a paper award, like the gold star to like the winner of the Lou Brown Give 'Em the Heater, or the who wins this movie. So I think we might have to mail out 2 awards this week. John Williams will get one, and then the winner of the movie will get one too.
Okay. Yep.
I need to find like a real shitty version of that, like just the gold star on a piece of paper, so I can get those made out and send them out. Like, who the fuck is this?
Even if that's our only interaction with John Williams, if he interacts with us at all, our lives have been made. This podcast has been worth it.
I have one of two outcomes I picture for that. One, he'll send us a very gracious letter saying oh, well, thank you for bestowing this award upon me. Or I could see it going the complete opposite direction. Don't send me this shit again.
Either one would be welcome.
I would frame either one of them. All right. Speaking of who wins this movie, the last award we have on the show today is who wins the movie. Quite a few people that we can nominate for this. Adam, since you were the guest today, do you have a list of nominees you want to put forward?
I don't have a list. I have, of course, John Williams has been picked for the bit actor. I can't really pick him. But even though he's not an actor, I guess we changed it up this week. Indiana Jones. And I know that's not a stretch or anything like that. But Harrison Ford is the soul of the movie. I think if they went with Tom Selleck, it would have been a good movie, but it wouldn't have been as good. He lends himself to Indiana Jones. He's the perfect puzzle piece to fit into the Indiana Jones puzzle. And I think if they went with Tom Selleck, they would have been mashing that piece in there trying to make it fit. So I think that his wit and his sarcasm and his gruffness, his everyman kind of vibe that he gives off, like we were talking about before, that makes the movie what it is. And even if it's got supernatural elements, it's got beating up Nazis, it's got all these highs and lows, if it weren't for Harrison Ford, the movie wouldn't be Indiana Jones. I know if Indiana Jones weren't there, it wouldn't be Indiana Jones, but you could do the movie without Indiana Jones and it still be a cool action movie. It doesn't have that character, and that character is the soul.
That's a good point. I struggled with this for a little bit. I thought about Steven Spielberg because he was kind of like the next big thing in Hollywood. He had done Close Encounters and Jaws before that, and then he kind of crashed back to earth with 1941. So from what I was reading, they were kind of looking at him as a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
And I guess they even had a little bit of trouble getting this movie financed because of him. But I thought about him because this is a huge comeback and cemented him as all right, this is going to be the director of our generation.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't think there's any more of an iconic director than Steven Spielberg. I think when you have the Mount Rushmore of directors, I think the first name is Spielberg.
Yeah.
I thought about him. I thought about John Williams just because this is kind of in that stretch of iconic scores that he had done. And we didn't even mention Close Encounters. He did that one too.
Yeah, that's another really, really popular theme.
I thought about Karen Allen. I thought Karen Allen's great in this movie, and she really is the perfect balance with Harrison Ford. I thought she's really good in it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I have to give it to Harrison Ford too. Just because, like I said, he kind of created that the hero that's not invincible.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably instances of action heroes that have gotten beat up and they don't always win the day, but to me, I think Indiana Jones is the start of the hero that you see in movies now. I even see a lot of Indiana Jones and John McClane and Die Hard.
Yeah.
That when I watched that, I was fuck, this is just like Indiana Jones. He's beat the hell. How is he still alive? And you just see that going forward throughout movies. And then even Harrison Ford, this is in the middle of that run where he just created his three most iconic movie characters were Han Solo in 1977, then he did Indiana Jones, and then the following year he did Rick Deckard in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the movie star, no one's ever going to confuse Harrison Ford with Anthony Hopkins is this great Shakespearean actor who's going to be doing all these prestige roles. But when you think of like who a movie star is, like Harrison Ford's got to be like after John Wayne and like Clark Gable before him and Humphrey Bogart. Like I think the movie star of the 80s was Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's the man's man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's him. Yeah.
And even like Indiana Jones, like when I was reading, like just with this, like Tom Selleck was supposed to be Indiana Jones. He wasn't the first choice to play Han Solo. And then when you look at his career down the road, like he wasn't supposed to be Jack Ryan in the Tom Clancy movies. He wasn't supposed to be Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. It's just he keeps stumbling into these roles that are not meant for him, and then he ends up making them work.
Yeah, and not only making them work, making them the best roles of his career or the best characters of cinema.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have to give it to him too. Like, just I can't, like you said, you can't see anybody else but Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones.
Right. And like I said, you can take Indiana Jones out of the movie. The Nazis will probably still die. I think they had this conversation on The Big Bang Theory. I don't really watch it all that much, but I've heard about it, where you can take Indiana Jones out of the entire movie and it would still play out as normal. The Nazis would still die, but you can't have as good of a movie. There's no way that it's going to be an awesome movie without Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And he's such a good character. And of course, like I said, not much would change if you took him out, but like the characters in the movie are what make the movie, not the plot itself.
All right. So there you have it. Harrison Ford, you'll be getting a star or the winner of the movie award too. I think this might be his second one. I think we were going to give it to him for The Fugitive too. So I have to get extra copies made for him. I'll have to go back and listen to that episode again. Well, that's going to wrap up Raiders of the Lost Ark. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know we usually give you a preview or tell you what we're going to do for the next episode, which we got good news for you guys. This is going to be the first of the weekly episode format now, so we're going to start giving you episodes every Monday now. So that's pretty cool if you like listening to us. Yeah, Adam is super excited too. We just put more on his plate.
That's okay.
But we usually tell you what we're going to do for next week's episode. With Lucas being, we don't know what Lucas's status is going to be for next week yet. We want him to take as much time as he wants. We have an episode in mind if he's able to do it. If not, we've also got a backup plan. So both movies are going to be super cool. I'm kind of hoping we do the movie that you and I chose to do.
Yeah. I actually just watched it this morning, and I can't wait to do it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just do it anyways and put the other one on the back burner. I mean, he can watch it, so. But, yeah, keep an eye on our social media pages. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter. We're on Twitter as well. You can shoot us an email at the couchbrotatopodcast@gmail.com. We'll even email you what we're doing next week once we figure that out. So please check us out on that. If you like what we're doing, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts so you can help us get found much faster for people that want to listen to a bunch of amateurs talk about movies and make horrible, horrible jokes. If that's your wheelhouse or you know somebody does, please leave us a review so they can find us faster. So until next week, that sounds funny saying that, we will talk at you guys soon. Later, everybody.
Bye.